Academic fraud blossoms everywhere in China, academic stars stripped naked by Geng Tongxue first. Here is Jersey News Commentary Channel. Recently, quite a number of China's academic stars had their pants pulled down first by an ordinary video blogger. This blogger is called Geng Tongxue Tells Stories, 耿同学讲故事, whose real name is Geng Hongwei, a PhD candidate who did not complete his doctoral degree at Beihang University. He has recently consecutively filed 实名举报, real name accusations against a number of outstanding young scholars, 结清, in the fields of biology and medicine at major universities, accusing them of academic fraud in published papers. The cases involve prestigious institutions such as Tongji University, Nankai University, Yat-sen University, and Shanghai University. The first case to be confirmed involved fraud in a Nature paper by the team, led by Wang Ping, Dean of the School of Life Science and Technology at Tongji University. According to the latest reports, Wang Ping has been removed from his dean position and demoted in rank, while the first author, Jin Jiali, has had her employment terminated. Soon after, Geng Tongxue reported suspicious data in a Nature Cancer paper published by Chen Quan, Dean of the School of Life Sciences at Nankai University, anomalies in a Nature Cell Biology paper by Kong Taibang, an outstanding young scholar at Yat-sen University, and abnormal patterns in a Nature Nanotechnology paper by Su Jiatsan's team at Shanghai University, including arithmetic sequences and highly repetitive datasets. Nankai, Yat-sen, and Shanghai University have all successively launched investigations. As a result, many netizens have praised Geng Tongxue as a grassroots disciplinary inspector of academia and a modern-day Hai Rui. Just as I was writing this article, Geng Tongxue dropped another bombshell. He claims to possess evidence of paper fraud involving 5 outstanding young scholars from 4 universities: Tongji University, East China Normal University, Hunan University, and Yat-sen University, all related to papers published in Nature and its affiliated journals. Please conduct self-inspections, distinguished young scholars. This time, Geng Tongxue changed his tactics. Rather than bringing the hammer down immediately, he suspended it in midair. In some sense, this strategy may be even more destructive. It leaves a number of academic heavyweights who engaged in fraud deeply anxious and unwilling to retract their papers, yet even more afraid to confront him head-on. Geng Tongxue stated that the fraud in the representative works of many distinguished young scholar teams has reached an utterly disgraceful level, far exceeding even his own imagination in both scale and extent. It is worth noting that Geng once said the reason he specifically targets deans, distinguished young scholars, and Yangtze River scholars from elite 985 and 211 universities is simple. Academic fraud among ordinary teachers is already far too widespread. Even if exposed, few would pay attention. Only when one strikes at the dean level, the hat title level, and the top journal level will public opinion truly be shaken. Some say Geng Tongxue is doing this purely for internet traffic and attention. My view is that while it cannot be ruled out that he has traffic considerations, his approach also has the effect of striking the snake at its vital point and creating a broader social effect of grasping the key link and clarifying the whole picture. According to the cockroach theory, if deans commit fraud and outstanding young scholars commit fraud, can one really believe that ordinary professors remain spotless and morally pure? Of course, we cannot rule out the existence of such scholars, but no matter how one looks at it, this phenomenon inversely proves that academic fraud in Chinese universities is not a few rotten apples. It is a massive pond that has long since gone foul and rotten. Academic fraud in China has blossomed everywhere. This is already an undeniable fact. Geng Tongxue's anti-fraud methods are actually not mysterious at all. He mainly examines paper figures, raw data, and supplementary materials, looking for abnormal patterns, highly consistent digits after decimal points, arithmetic sequences, duplicated images, suspicious distributions, and the repeated appearance of the same datasets across multiple charts. In other words, he does not rely on power. He does not rely on insider documents. He merely relies on basic common sense, statistical intuition, and publicly available materials, yet he has managed to puncture the academic myths wrapped in the cloaks of top journals, outstanding young scholars, and deans. This alone reveals how brazen academic fraud in China has become. Geng Tongxue's anti-fraud efforts inevitably remind people of Professor Rao Yi, often called the Lu Sun of China's scientific community. Rao Yi has publicly questioned and reported paper-related problems involving multiple prominent scientists. Around 2019, Rao Yi filed 实名举报, real name accusations against university presidents, academicians, and well-known scholars such as Chao Shuetao, Pei Gang, Geng Meiyu, and Li Hongyang, accusing them of academic misconduct. In 2021, China's Ministry of Science and Technology and other agencies released an investigation report stating that no fraud, plagiarism, or academic theft had been found, while simultaneously acknowledging that multiple papers by figures such as Chao Shu et al. Contained misused images and lax laboratory management, resulting in penalties such as suspension of eligibility for project applications, expert review qualifications, and graduate student recruitment. These kinds of official reports carry a distinctly Chinese communist institutional characteristic. The problems are serious, but the wording is mild. The evidence is glaring, but the conclusion is feather light. What the public sees is not serious punishment, but rather raising the stick high and bringing it down lightly. As a result, an unspoken rule has gradually taken shape in academia. As long as your title is prestigious enough, your position high enough, and your connection strong enough, paper problems can be called image misuse. Data manipulation can be labeled poor management, and fraud evidence can be dismissed as isolated oversights. Professor Rao insisted on repeat experiments to verify authenticity, yet the results were often overridden by collective voting conducted by entrenched interest groups. In one sentence, top-tier fraudsters continue to walk free, while ordinary people are angry but afraid to speak, and nowhere exists for them to appeal. This is the reality of China's academic world. So, why has academic fraud blossomed everywhere in China? What are its roots? First cause, when the upper beam is crooked, the lower beam will be bent. A country's political ecology determines its academic ecology. In a system where power stands above truth, academia can never truly be independent. The Chinese Communist Party constantly emphasizes seeking truth from facts, yet in reality, the entity least respectful of facts is often power itself. Today it advocates marketization, tomorrow it advances the state sector while retreating private enterprise. Today it speaks of rule of law, tomorrow it arrests people with vague pocket crimes, 口袋罪. Today it claims to respect science, tomorrow every academic discipline is required to study the highest political instructions. The operating logic of the entire country is not truth-seeking, but obedience. Scientific research as a whole does not truly care about rigorous evidence and sound logic. What matters is taking sides, showing compliance, and demonstrating loyalty. Under such an environment, academia can only become power's little wife. University party committees, bureaucratic rankings, dean authority, resource allocation, project evaluation, promotion systems layer upon layer, all are infused with power. Whoever controls research grants controls laboratories. Whoever controls laboratories controls recommendation rights. Whoever controls recommendation rights controls honorary titles. And whoever controls honorary titles controls the fate of young scholars. The so-called academic community often turns into an administrative community, a relationship-based community, and an interest-sharing community. Second cause, quantitative evaluation has turned academia into an assembly line. For years, Chinese universities have been hijacked by an obsession with papers, titles, projects, and awards. In a 2020 policy document, even the Chinese Communist Party Central Committee and the State Council acknowledged the existence of deeply entrenched problems in educational evaluation, including score-only thinking, credential-only thinking, diploma-only thinking, paper-only thinking, and title-only thinking. China's Ministry of Education has also repeatedly called for dismantling the dominance of SCI supremacy in academic evaluation. This means the problem is not imagined by outsiders. Even the authorities themselves admit that the disease has become terminal. The up or out, 非升即走 mechanism forces young faculty members into a brutal tournament. If you fail to meet publication, funding, or project targets, you leave. If you cannot publish in top journals, you lose your place. If you cannot obtain prestigious academic titles, you lose access to resources. Reports on ScienceNet 科学网 have also pointed out that the up or out system is frequently used to pressure young faculty into producing results as quickly as possible. The problem is that real scientific research requires time, failure, and uncertainty. Administrative evaluation, however, demands annual achievements, quantifiable metrics, and beautiful reports. As a result, academic labor has been transformed into piece-rate labor. Papers are no longer the result of research, they become currency for promotion. Publication is no longer about disseminating knowledge, it becomes a survival permit. Even more absurdly, this entire system of paper supremacism has not weakened academic oligarchies, it has reinforced them. Why? Because the people truly capable of mobilizing resources are precisely those with administrative positions, prestigious titles, research funding, graduate students, and institutional platforms. University presidents, deans, distinguished young scholars, Yangtze River scholars. They can exchange resources for authorship, projects for collaboration, and institutional platforms for influence. Young scholars, by contrast, struggle merely to survive in the cracks. They either attach themselves to powerful patrons, remain silent, or join the same game of flooding journals, packaging results, and fabricating data. Third cause, academic publishing itself has become deeply alienated. Scholar Xiang Biao once offered an especially penetrating criticism of this issue. He argued that academic publishing has increasingly drifted away from its original purpose of sharing knowledge. Writing and publication have become the most alienated forms of academic labor, while academia itself grows increasingly closed, hierarchical, and stratified. In China, however, academia is not only distorted by publishing mechanisms. It is also domesticated by political discourse. This is particularly true in the humanities and social sciences. A vast number of papers no longer begin with real-world problems. Instead, scholars first search for official political slogans, then force-fit a theoretical framework, and finally stuff in supporting materials. For example, research guided by Xi Jinping thought on culture. Mechanisms under the perspective of Chinese-style modernization. New quality productive forces empowering development paths. At their core, such works are often not research at all. They are merely footnotes added to political power discourse. This is a modern form of the classics annotate me, I annotate the classics. 六经注我，我注六经. This is why Nyeshingja once angrily declared that 99.99% of humanities academic papers are waste paper, a waste of forest resources. The statement is sharp, perhaps even harsh. But it is not entirely without basis in reality. When papers no longer seek to understand the real world, but merely repeat political slogans, when research no longer explains problems, but merely serves as an accessory to official documents, when scholars no longer face society, but only face evaluation forms, then academia naturally degenerates into a waste paper production line. Fourth cause, the moral bottom line of society has already collapsed. In a normal society, fraud is a disgrace. In a pathological society, fraud becomes a skill. In many situations in China, people do not hate fraud itself, they ridicule you for lacking sophisticated techniques in committing it. They do not oppose cheating, they resent you for lacking the right connections. They do not respect honesty, they dismiss honest people as naive, rigid, or too straight-minded. From food safety to statistical data, from local government debt to employment figures, from credential embellishment to project inspections, fraud has long ceased to be the disease of a single profession. It has become part of the operating mechanism of society itself and arguably one of its most valuable components. Naturally, academia cannot remain untouched. On the contrary, while academia still possesses considerable discourse power, academic ethics themselves have already collapsed. Fifth cause, punishment is too light, while the rewards are too great. International concern over China's paper retractions continues to intensify. A 2026 analysis based on the Retraction Watch database found that as of February 2025, papers affiliated with Chinese institutions accounted for more than 30,000 retractions, representing 55.3% of all global retractions in the database. Nature has also reported that due to issues involving paper mills, retractions, and research misconduct, China has launched comprehensive investigations. In a 2026 report, the Financial Times noted that Chinese authors had nearly 3,000 paper retractions in 2024, compared to only 177 for American authors. Of course, these numbers do not prove that all Chinese scientific research is fake. Nor do they negate the fact that China genuinely possesses many excellent scientists and real achievements. But they are sufficient to demonstrate that academic fraud in China has already evolved into a systemic and structural form of contamination. Why can this contamination not be eradicated? Because the rewards for fraud are simply too enormous. Publish a paper in a top journal, and one may obtain prestigious academic titles, research grants, promotions, awards, research teams, deanships, greater financial gain, and even access to beautiful women, and more. Yet once caught, the consequences are often reduced to image misuse, poor management, or temporary suspension of qualifications for 1 year. The rewards are lifelong. The punishment is temporary. The rewards are substantial. The punishment is symbolic. A system like this naturally encourages fraud. A Yat-sen commentary 第一财经评论 article once pointed out, not a single problematic paper has ever been uncovered proactively by official authorities, yet every one of them consumed anywhere from 500,000 to several million yuan in research funding. One can reasonably infer that if tens of thousands of such research papers are published annually in China, then tens or even hundreds of billions of yuan in taxpayers' hard-earned money are simply being squandered in vain. Most frightening of all is this: these universities and research institutions are supposed to be society's elite and conscience. Universities are supposed to teach students honesty, independence, skepticism, and truth-seeking. But what students see instead is deans committing fraud, professors flooding journals with meaningless publications, advisors stealing authorship, and academic oligarchs monopolizing resources. What conclusion will students naturally draw? They will conclude that truth does not matter, position matters. Research does not matter, packaging and fabrication matter. Originality does not matter, connections matter. If universities have rotted to this degree, does China still have any hope? Meanwhile, the Western world harbors another rather amusing misjudgment. Many people look at China's paper output, patent counts, university rankings, and research spending, and immediately proclaim that Chinese technology will soon comprehensively surpass the West. What they fail to see is, the glittering exterior conceals rot within. Behind those intimidating numbers lies the reality that China's scientific research has already begun to decay and stink, while the Chinese communist system itself has rotted to the roots. Can a system obsessed with manufacturing paper quantity truly produce original ideas? Can a system that mobilizes resources through administrative power genuinely protect the spirit of science? Can a society that does not permit free questioning truly pursue and approach truth? The significance of Geng Tongxue does not lie merely in tearing down the paper myths surrounding several academic celebrities. What he has truly exposed is the deep structural logic behind the collapse of China's academic ecosystem. Power dominates academia. Metrics dominate research. Publication dominates writing. Relationships dominate evaluation. Fraud dominates promotion. When even universities in a society no longer revere truth, when even scientists turn papers into tools for career advancement and personal gain, when even publications in top journals cannot withstand scrutiny of decimal points and image comparisons, then, does Chinese society still have hope? Academic fraud in China has blossomed everywhere. But what it has blossomed into is not flowers, it is the mold of an entire system.